Peter Pan. Wendy lived in London with her two younger brothers, John and Michael. Every night she told them stories. Their favorite stories were about Peter Pan, a boy who never grew up. One night, Peter Pan came to their house. He came to find his shadow, which he had lost there. With him was a tiny fairy named Tinker Bell. Wendy helped him get his shadow back. Peter asked the children to fly with him to Neverland. He said, "There are fairies, mermaids, and pirates." With magic from Tinker Bell, they flew out of the window and over the city. After a long flight, they arrived in Neverland. It was a beautiful island with forests, mountains, and sea. The children met the lost boys, other children who had no parents. Peter was their leader. Wendy became like a mother to the lost boys. She cooked, cleaned, and told them bedtime stories. Peter was happy, but danger was near. Captain Hook, a pirate with a hook for a hand, wanted to catch Peter. He was angry because Peter had cut off his hand. Hook tried many tricks. One day, he captured Wendy and her brothers. He took them to his ship and planned to make them walk the plank. Peter came to help. He fought Captain Hook. After a big battle, Peter won, and Hook fell into the sea. Peter and Tinker Bell saved Wendy, John, and Michael. The lost boys wanted to go to London, too. Wendy said yes, but Peter did not want to grow up. He said goodbye and stayed in Neverland. Wendy and her brothers flew back home. Their parents were so happy to see them again. They even said the lost boys could stay with them. Years passed. Wendy grew up, but Peter stayed the same. Sometimes he came back to visit her window at night, still flying with Tinker Bell in the sky. Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. Alice was a curious little girl. One sunny afternoon, she was sitting under a tree with her sister. Suddenly, she saw a white rabbit with a pocket watch. The rabbit ran by, saying, "Oh dear, I'm late." Alice followed the rabbit. He jumped into a hole, and Alice went in after him. She fell down, down, down for a long time. Then she landed softly in a strange hallway. The hallway had many doors. On a table, she found a key and a small bottle. The bottle said, "Drink me." Alice drank it and became very small. Now she could open a tiny door and walk into a magical garden. In Wonderland, everything was strange. She met many unusual creatures. First, she met a mouse who told a long, sad story. Then she joined a tea party with the Mad Hatter, the March Hare, and the Dormouse. They talked nonsense and never stopped changing seats. Later, Alice met a grinning cat who could disappear and appear again. It was called the Cheshire Cat. It told her to visit the Queen of Hearts. On the way, Alice saw playing cards painting white roses red. "The Queen only likes red roses," they said. Then she met the Queen herself. The Queen shouted, "Off with their heads," to almost everyone. Alice was surprised, but not afraid. She played a strange game of croquet using flamingos as sticks and hedgehogs as balls. At the end, the Queen wanted to punish Alice, but Alice grew taller and taller. She said, "You're just a pack of cards." Suddenly, all the cards flew up into the air. Alice woke up under the tree beside her sister. "What a strange dream," she said. Little Women. The March family lived in a small house in New England during the American Civil War. Mr. March was away, working as a soldier. At home, his wife, Mrs. March, called Marmee by her daughters, took care of their 4 girls. Meg, the oldest, was kind and proper. Joe was strong, bold, and full of ideas. Beth was quiet and gentle. Amy, the youngest, loved pretty things and wanted to be a great lady. The family was poor, but they were happy. They shared everything and helped each other. On Christmas, they gave their breakfast to a poor family and received gifts from a kind old man, Mr. Lawrence, who lived next door. Mr. Lawrence's grandson, Laurie, became friends with the March girls. Joe and Laurie were very close. They read books, played games, and talked for hours. Joe dreamed of being a famous writer. She wrote stories and plays. The girls performed Joe's plays at home. Laurie always came to watch. One day, Meg was invited to a rich friend's house for a party. Amy was jealous because she wanted to go too. The next day, Joe went ice skating with Laurie. Amy followed but fell into the river. Joe and Laurie saved her. Amy cried and said sorry for being angry. The sisters forgave each other. Soon, bad news came. Mr. March was very sick in the hospital. Marmee went to help him. Joe cut her hair and sold it to get money for the trip. She cried later, but her sisters loved her for her kindness. While Marmee was away, Beth helped a poor family and caught scarlet fever. She was very sick. Amy went to live with their aunt to stay safe. Everyone was worried. Finally, Beth got better and Marmee came home. The family was together again. Later, Laurie's tutor, Mr. Brooke, fell in love with Meg. They got married. Joe was sad about losing her sister to a new family. Laurie told Joe he loved her, but Joe said no. She didn't want to marry. She went to New York to study and write. In New York, Joe met a kind man named Professor Bear. He was poor, but he loved books and children. They became friends. Joe started to change. She still wanted to be a writer, but she also wanted a kind heart. At home, Beth became sick again. This time, she didn't get better. Joe stayed by her side. When Beth died, the whole family was heartbroken. Joe missed her deeply and wrote stories to remember her. After Beth's death, Joe realized she wanted love in her life. A rainy day, Professor Bear came to see her. He said he loved her, and Joe was happy. She asked him to stay. In the end, Joe opened a school for boys with Professor Bear. Meg had twins. Laurie married Amy, and the family stayed close. They were not rich, but they had love, dreams, and each other.
Gulliver's Travels. Gulliver was a doctor who loved the sea. He worked on ships and traveled to many countries. One day, his ship hit a terrible storm. The ship broke, and Gulliver fell into the sea. He swam and found land. Then he fell asleep. When Gulliver woke up, he could not move. His body was tied with hundreds of tiny ropes. He looked around and saw tiny people. They were only 6 inches tall. They were soldiers from a place called Lilliput. The Lilliputians were afraid of Gulliver at first, but he was kind and calm, so they took him to the city and gave him food and water. He helped them in many ways. He stopped an enemy ship, and the Lilliputians were happy. But later, some people became jealous. They made plans to hurt Gulliver. So he left Lilliput in a small boat and went back to the sea. After some time, another storm hit, and Gulliver arrived in a new land. This time, the people were giants. They were 60 feet tall. He was now the small one. A farmer found him and took him home. People paid money to see the little man, and the farmer got rich. Gulliver did not like being treated like a toy. He was tired and sad. One day, the king of the land, called Brobdingnag, bought him. The king and queen were kind, and Gulliver lived in the palace. He told stories about England, but the king laughed. "Your people love war and money too much," the king said. One day, a bird picked up Gulliver's house, a small box, and dropped it into the sea. A ship found him and brought him back to England. But Gulliver wanted to see more. On another trip, pirates attacked his ship. They left him alone on an island. Strange flying people called the Laputans took him to their sky island. They were smart but silly. They loved music and math but did not care about real life. Gulliver thought they were foolish. Later, he visited a place with smart horses called Houyhnhnms. They lived peacefully and used reason. In their land, dirty, wild humans called yahoos lived like animals. Gulliver was ashamed. He thought, I am like the yahoos, but I want to be like the horses. When Gulliver came home, he didn't like humans anymore. He thought people were greedy and unkind. He bought some horses and lived quietly with them. He spent his time talking to horses and reading books. Gulliver had traveled far and seen many strange places. He learned that every land is different and every kind of people has good and bad. But he believed kindness and reason were better than war and pride.
Romeo and Juliet. In the city of Verona, in Italy, two powerful families hated each other. Their names were the Montagues and the Capulets. They fought often, and their hate was strong. Romeo was a young Montague. He was kind, poetic, and full of emotion. Juliet was a Capulet. She was only 13, but she was smart, brave, and beautiful. One night, the Capulets had a big party. Romeo went with his friends, wearing a mask so no one could see who he was. There he saw Juliet for the first time. She did not know he was a Montague. They talked and fell in love quickly. But soon after they kissed, Juliet's nurse whispered something to her. "That boy is Romeo. He is a Montague." Juliet froze. Her heart dropped. "My only love is from my only hate," she thought. At the same time, Romeo asked a servant about the girl he had just met. When he heard, "She is Juliet, a Capulet," he felt shocked. "So my enemy is the one I love," he murmured. Later that night, unable to stay away, Romeo climbed into the garden under Juliet's balcony. She came out, still worried about what she had learned, but when she saw Romeo, all her fear disappeared. They spoke sweet words of love. "If you love me," Juliet said, "marry me." Romeo agreed. They asked Friar Lawrence, a kind priest, to help them. He married them in secret the next day. But the same day something terrible happened. Juliet's cousin, Tybalt, was angry at Romeo. He wanted to fight. Romeo did not want to hurt Juliet's family, but Tybalt killed Romeo's friend Mercutio, and Romeo became angry. He fought Tybalt and killed him. Now Romeo was in danger. The Prince of Verona said, "Leave this city, Romeo, or you will die." Romeo left and went to another town. Juliet was heartbroken. Juliet's parents didn't know she was married. They wanted her to marry a rich man named Paris. Juliet didn't know what to do. She went to Friar Lawrence for help. The friar gave her a special drink. "Drink this," he said. "You will sleep for 2 days and look dead. Your family will put you in the tomb. Then Romeo will come and you can escape together." Juliet drank the potion, and her family thought she was dead. They put her in the family tomb. But the friar's message to Romeo didn't arrive. Romeo heard Juliet was dead. He was very sad. He went to the tomb with poison. He saw Juliet and believed she was really dead. He kissed her and drank the poison. Then he died next to her. A few minutes later, Juliet woke up. She saw Romeo dead beside her. She cried, kissed him, and took his knife. Then she ended her own life. Soon the Montagues and Capulets came. They saw the two lovers and were full of sorrow. the families finally understood their hate caused this tragedy. They promised to stop fighting.
Jack and the Beanstalk. Jack was a poor boy. He lived with his mother in a small cottage. They were very poor. One day, they had no more money and no food left. "Jack," said his mother, "take our cow to the market and sell her. We need money." Jack took the cow and walked to the town. On the way, he met a strange man. "That is a fine cow," said the man. "I will give you 5 magic beans for her." "Magic beans?" said Jack. "What do they do?" "They grow to the sky," the man said. Jack thought the beans were exciting. He gave the cow to the man and took the beans. When he got home, his mother was angry. "Magic beans!" she cried. "We needed money." She threw the beans out the window. The next morning, Jack woke up and looked outside. A giant beanstalk was growing from the ground. It went up, up, up into the sky. Jack wanted to know what was at the top. He climbed the beanstalk. It was a long climb. At the top, he found a big house. A giant woman came to the door. "Please," said Jack, "I'm hungry." The giant woman gave him some bread and milk, but then she said, "Go quickly. My husband is a giant and he eats boys." Jack hid in the kitchen. Soon the giant came in. He said, "Fee, fi, fo, fum. I smell the blood of an Englishman." "Don't be silly," said his wife. "There is no boy here." The giant ate his food. Then he took out a bag of gold coins. He counted them and then fell asleep. Jack came out, took a bag of gold, and ran down the beanstalk. His mother was happy. "Now we can buy food," she said. But Jack was curious. A few days later, he climbed the beanstalk again. This time, the giant had a magic hen. "Lay," he said. The hen laid a golden egg. When the giant went to sleep, Jack took the hen and climbed down the beanstalk again. "Look, Mother," said Jack, "a hen that lays golden eggs." Jack and his mother were rich, but Jack wanted more. He climbed the beanstalk a third time. This time, the giant had a magic harp. It played beautiful music all by itself. Jack waited. When the giant fell asleep, Jack took the harp, but the harp cried out, "Master, help me!" The giant woke up. He saw Jack and ran after him. Jack climbed down the beanstalk as fast as he could. The giant came down too, but he was very slow. "Mother," Jack shouted, "bring me an axe." Jack took the axe and cut down the beanstalk. The beanstalk fell, and the giant crashed to the ground. He was dead. From that day, Jack and his mother lived in peace. They had gold, the magic hen, and the harp. They were never poor again. Jack learned to be brave, but also to be careful, and he never traded cows for beans again. The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. Tom Sawyer was a clever and curious boy. He lived with his Aunt Polly in a small town by the Mississippi River. Tom didn't like school or work. He liked adventures and fun. One day, Aunt Polly told Tom to paint the fence. Tom didn't want to, but he had an idea. He told other boys that painting was fun. Soon they gave Tom small gifts to let them paint. Tom sat and watched while the fence got painted. Aunt Polly was surprised and pleased. Tom had a good friend named Huckleberry Finn. Huck wore old clothes and had no parents. He could do whatever he wanted. Tom and Huck liked to play pirates and look for treasure. One night, Tom and Huck went to the graveyard. They wanted to try magic to find treasure, but they saw something terrible. Injun Joe, a bad man, killed Dr. Robinson. Muff Potter was there too, but he didn't hurt anyone. Joe put the knife in Muff's hand and ran away. Tom and Huck were scared. They promised never to tell anyone what they saw. Days passed. Muff Potter was put in jail. Everyone believed he killed the doctor. Tom felt bad. Muff was kind to him. At the trial, Tom stood up and told the truth. He said Injun Joe was the real killer. Everyone was shocked. Injun Joe jumped out of the window and ran away. Tom became a hero. Later, Tom and his friend Becky Thatcher went into a cave. They walked and played, but then they got lost. They couldn't find the way out. Days passed. Everyone in town looked for them. Tom and Becky were tired and hungry. One day, Tom saw Injun Joe in the cave. He was hiding there. Tom was very scared, but didn't make a sound. Soon after, Tom found a small hole with light. He and Becky escaped from the cave. The town was very happy. The cave was closed forever. Later, people found Injun Joe inside. He had no food and died there. Weeks later, Tom remembered something. He took Huck back to the cave. They followed a map and found Injun Joe's treasure, a box full of gold coins. The boys were rich. Tom stayed with Aunt Polly, and Huck was going to live with a kind woman. But Huck didn't like rules. He ran away. Tom found him and said, "You can't be a pirate if you run away from your gold." Huck smiled. He decided to stay and try a new life. Tom and Huck stayed friends forever. They didn't become pirates, but they had many more adventures.
Snow White. Once upon a time, a queen sat by her window making clothes. It was winter, and snow was falling. She pricked her finger, and 3 drops of blood fell on the snow. She said, "I want a daughter with skin as white as snow, lips as red as blood, and hair as black as night." Soon the queen had a baby girl. She named her Snow White. But the queen died, and the king married a new woman. She was very beautiful, but also proud and cruel. The new queen had a magic mirror. Every day she asked it, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" The mirror always said, "You are the fairest." But one day, when Snow White grew older, the mirror said, "Snow White is now the fairest." The queen was angry and jealous. She called a huntsman and said, "Take Snow White to the forest and kill her." But in the forest, the huntsman felt sorry for the girl. He said, "Run away and don't come back." Snow White ran deep into the woods. There she found a small house. Everything was tiny. Tiny chairs, tiny beds, tiny plates. She was tired, so she fell asleep on a bed. The house belonged to 7 dwarfs. When they came home, they found her sleeping. They were kind and said, "You can stay if you help us with cooking and cleaning." Snow White was happy. Back at the castle, the queen asked the mirror again, "Who is the fairest of them all?" The mirror said, "Snow White, who lives with the 7 dwarfs." The queen was furious. She planned to kill Snow White herself. She disguised herself as an old woman and went to the dwarf's house. First, she gave Snow White a tight lace. Snow White couldn't breathe and fell down. The dwarfs came and saved her. Next, the queen came with a poisoned comb. When Snow White used it, she fainted again. The dwarfs removed it, and she woke up. Finally, the queen made a poisoned apple. One bite would kill anyone.
She gave it to Snow White. Snow White took a bite, fell down, and didn't move. The dwarfs were very sad. They made a glass coffin and placed her in it. One day, a prince came. He saw Snow White and thought she was very beautiful. He kissed her gently. At that moment, the piece of apple came out of her throat. Snow White opened her eyes. She was alive. The prince asked her, "Will you come with me and be my queen?" Snow White said yes. They got married and everyone was happy, except the wicked queen. When she looked in the mirror, it said, "The new queen is the fairest of them all." The queen was so angry that she never showed her face again. Snow White and the prince lived happily ever after.